Today's talk is a spiritual chat on depression, and the date today is Wednesday, August the 24th, 2022. So hi, everyone, and welcome. I felt that this is an important topic to address, as there are many people suffering from depression at this time, diagnosed as well as undiagnosed. Because there has always been a stigma attached to depression, saying that people are crazy, people have an issue even considering that that may be what they're going through. And of course, if you refuse to look at what the issue is, then you're unable to address what's going on behind it, so you never end up clearing it. Whenever someone is given the diagnosis of depression and given the meds, the medical profession consider that a lifetime diagnosis where the meds will just keep getting stronger and stronger. Many people who take the meds are numb, and so they stop feeling, they're unable to cry, and bearing in mind that we only have one feeling center. So if you can't feel the pain, that also means you can't feel the joy and the happiness. So people just move through life feeling pretty numb. Well, I believe there is nothing that cannot be healed through energy healing. I've helped many folk over the years with depression who were eventually able to go off their meds because they no longer needed them. I'm not anti-meds. I believe there's time and place for everything. So if people need to take meds in order for them to get through what they're going through in that moment, I don't have an issue with that. I like them to set an intention around the meds so that it's not impacting them in a negative way. But if it's helping them initially, then that's a good thing. But it's not a good thing for them to be on indefinitely. And then, of course, a lot of the meds these days for depression, the side effect is suicidal tendencies. I mean, what the hell are they thinking? Why don't you just give a person a loaded gun? I don't understand how the doctors are happy to prescribe these kind of meds. I have a few clients of mine who are psychologists and psychiatrists, and they refuse to prescribe these meds. And I think it's because they are, if they're coming to me, they're pretty open to other things, spiritual things and energy healing and stuff. So they refuse to prescribe meds to their clients because they probably have a conscience around it. And just by the way, a little side note, they never refer any of their clients to me. I think it's because they know that they wouldn't have a practice anymore, not the kind of practice that would have them with the same clients over and over and over again. I wish they had the attitude of, even if they saw a client once, that would be good enough if they led them in the right direction. So when I have a client who is suffering from depression, I always try and dig back to what was the cause, address what was behind the session. So I'm really grateful that my first experience with energy healing was my case study I did on a woman who suffered from depression. So there was this real sweetheart lady who did the flowers for my wedding, and she was such a honey, but she suffered from severe depression, had been was under a psychologist for 40 years, had been taking meds for as long as she could remember, but she couldn't feel anything. So she couldn't cry, even though she knew it was a really sad thing she was hearing. She just didn't have there was just no emotion. It numbed her out completely. And so I just thought, if a person's going to get 10 sessions of the energy healing, because that's what you have to do, and monitor the progress with each session, I thought I want to give that to her. And so I spoke to her about it, and she was very keen. And then I get off the phone, and I suddenly realized, oh my gosh, what have I done? How on earth am I going to monitor depression? I mean, it's not like pain. And then I suddenly realized, oh, so they always say with pain, what's the pain from 1 to 10, with 1 being... so I decided to do the 1 to 10. So I did it with 1 being the worst and 10 being the best. Whereas pain is the other way around, where it's the most excruciating and the least excruciating. But I just took it as how she's feeling, with 1 being the worst and 10 being the best. And so when we started the session, she said she was a 3. Now, her life was to the point where she was hardly ever able to leave her house. So she was very anxious about leaving her house and very nervous. She had no self-confidence whatsoever and no self-esteem. And so she couldn't leave the house most days. If she was out and about doing the shopping, when she managed to get herself out, she could never just go and sit down and have a cup of coffee at a coffee shop. She never had the confidence for that. Or if she went, if she was walking past the hairdressers and there was nobody in the hairdressers, but she didn't have the confidence to be able to pop in and just say, hi, do you have an appointment available for me so that I can come now? And she just never, ever, ever did that. The other thing was her husband used to travel overseas for business conferences as well. And at the time while he was busy with the conference, she would just sit in a hotel room and not go anywhere. So as we were going along, the numbers were improving, each time improving. So we were on a 7. And I was so excited with the progress of this whole thing when the one day she arrived and she was absolutely beside herself. She was shaking from head to toe. And I asked her what had happened. And she said there's a friend of her husband's that's busy doing some repairs on their roof. And as she was leaving, he was saying, so are you too nervous to leave today? Are you too scared to leave the house? Aren't you afraid of going to the shopping center? Let me tell you, if I had seen that guy, I would have punched him because I couldn't believe she was in such a state. How can you be okay with doing that to somebody else? Anyway, so I just said to her, look, where are you on the scale of 1 to 10? And she said at a 3. And I was like, oh my God, this guy has undone the whole thing. And so she said, oh, no, but I'm feeling a 3 right now, but I'm not feeling the 3 like I did when I came. This is just how I'm feeling right now. So she was able to distinguish between how she was feeling was just in the moment and not that she had been set back to how it was before. So I was so excited about that. So after we'd done the session, she felt so much better. And by the time we got to the end of the 10 sessions, she had gone into a coffee shop when she was in a shopping center, gone into a coffee shop and had a cup of coffee, first time in her life. She'd popped into the hairdressers to go and see if they had an appointment available for her. And then after we had, I think it was the next month after the 10 sessions, she had gone with her husband overseas and they'd gone with another couple who she was friends with. And so each time they would go out, when the husbands were busy, the woman would go out together. But the one day she just said, you know what, I don't feel like doing what you're doing today, so I'm going to go out on my own. And she went out in a strange city on her own and went and walked around and did the touristy thing. So after that, I absolutely knew that one can turn around depression in a way that you can completely get your life back. So she was such an amazing success story for me. So we are first and foremost an energetic being, then a physical being, then a physical body, okay? What that means is that we are first impacted energetically by an experience, then it will manifest physically if not attended to. So when we have an experience in our life, whatever the experience is, good or bad, it creates a trigger in our energy field, the aura that's around us, that can be set off in relation to that experience, okay? So it can trigger that memory. So if there's something in your environment that triggers the memory, now this can be seeing a car of someone from your past that triggers the memory that they had the same car, or you watch a movie and it's a place where you went on holiday with that person, or it's a song that you hear, someone looks like a person from the past. The memory can be triggered without you even being consciously aware that it's being triggered, because your subconscious mind is aware 24/7, 360 degrees around you. We are only consciously aware with what we're paying attention to. So you may not even know that something's being triggered. But all you know is all of a sudden you feel down or you feel happy for no apparent reason. But we don't seem to notice the happy part. We kind of notice that we just feel down, but we don't know why. Meantime, the record of that experience is playing in the background. So our body doesn't know the difference between reality and imagination. So when you imagine yourself in a situation or imagine something happening, your body responds as if you're going through that experience now. It doesn't think, oh no, that's just something he or she is just thinking about. It goes there now. So someone who is fearful of spiders and you say, oh, imagine yourself covered in spiders, they could go into a full-blown panic attack because their body goes there as if it's happening when it's not happening, which shows how much our mind controls what our experience is. So in the same way, when you recall a memory, when it replays, the body doesn't replay it as if it's a past memory. It activates like you are going through that experience right now, not in the past. So when you have a good memory, you're feeling good right now. And when you have a bad memory, you're feeling bad right now. Depression is where more than one memory is active at the same time. So it's normally when people are going through difficult situations in their life, but a whole lot. It's not just one thing. There are a few things active and non-stop going on all the time. I did speak in the past recording last week when I spoke on Spiritual Chat on Death and Loss, and I told you about how I had shut down when my husband had died, and I had shut down the giggling part and didn't even know that it was shut down. So even though I didn't suffer from depression per se, although I guess I would have been depressed initially while I was processing the grief in the beginning. So it's normal for people to have bouts of depression where you have an experience that's happened in your life and you're feeling down. What's not normal is when it perpetuates and you're not getting yourself back on track. So I spoke about how when I lost my husband, I'd lost the giggling part of who I am, but then got it back after the energy healing, even though I was always a person that's upbeat and positive and always seeing the upside of things. I always saw the glass half full, not the glass half empty. I was still unable to avoid the grief being locked into my energy system. So I just want to point out some causes that can trigger depression. So one thing that makes me really mad is how the doctors, the gynecologists, do not point out to women that they can get postpartum or postnatal depression after the birth of their baby. They can be the happiest person on the planet, and yet they can still suffer from that. And it kicks in, obviously, because the hormones are all over the place. And if it doesn't come right, it can perpetuate, especially if there are other things that are not right in their lives, okay? Grief is another thing that can trigger where there's a loss of a loved one, where one hasn't been able to overcome the loss. Trauma related to abuse, for example, rape. Shock related to bad news or a bad diagnosis. PTSD, where post-traumatic stress is caused by witnessing or experiencing atrocities, for example, in war, or if someone's had a personal experience where they've had a hijacking, or where there's been an intruder come into their house and they've been held at gunpoint, whatever extreme trauma that is. I truly believe that with this whole situation that has happened with the whole COVID thing, that there are many people suffering from post-traumatic stress because we still don't know that there's an end, that there's a light at the end of the tunnel, because things still haven't kind of kicked back into a way that we can get our lives back on track. Divorce can cause it. Unrequited love, where someone is in love with someone and they never ever get the response, but they believe that person did love them. So that can also cause a problem. Losing your job, that's either being made redundant or being fired. Experiences of injustices like at work or sport, where you were overlooked for something that you absolutely believe that you deserved. And sometimes it's done deliberately by people who didn't want you to get anywhere. And then being socially awkward due to the lack of confidence or low self-esteem. Survivor's guilt is a massive one, where a person's been in a car crash or something, and or even at war, since many of you folk are in the States, where people have gone to war, and then they witnessed people next to them dying, or somebody in their group, and they felt that they should have died with the group, especially if the whole group were wiped out and they were the only one that survived. So survivor's guilt is a terribly debilitating, where they feel that they should have died in the place of somebody else. That can also happen with people in a car wreck, where other members of their family died and they wish they died in the place of them. Then, of course, when there's been a miscarriage, and because even with a miscarriage, the postpartum, postnatal depression can kick in with that as well, because the hormones are also all over the place. And then you got the added grief associated with the loss. And then, of course, also with abortion or forced termination, an accident trauma. In other words, when someone has ended up debilitated in some way, whether they've ended up in a wheelchair or their functioning is not as it was before. And then a loss of a pet. Some people think that can't be triggered, but for some people, a pet is like their family, and maybe that was the only family that they had, the only thing that they took care of. And some pets can live for 15 to 20 years. So they've been in those people's lives all that time. But people around them wouldn't understand, because they can't understand that a person could get so depressed. Get over it. Why are you still feeling that way? And that's easier said than done, you know. And then, of course, with adoption, whether a person was adopted or they gave a child up for adoption, there's also a lot of emotional trauma related to that. And many folk get frozen in time when losing someone close to them, and they never deal with the grief at that time. And when they're not dealing with it at the time, it goes under the surface. So it'll take another shock, another loss, another as big a traumatic event to reactivate that, so that the people can, so that they can then deal with it. But what happens is one just allows it to go under the surface again, because they don't know how to deal with it. So some of the indicators regarding depression: no zest for life, feeling listless, no energy, a persistent depressed or low mood. They don't want to socialize, and yet they used to be social people, feeling withdrawn, isolating themselves from family and friends, loss of appetite, or the opposite, where they're just eating. It's out of balance because they're not sure how they're feeling. And it's interesting that the solar plexus is where you feel joy, and you feel, that's where you get your butterflies, and that's also where you get a knot in your stomach when you're anxious, and it's also where you feel hungry. So it can be very confusing. So when one is feeling anxious, they can mistake that and think that they need to eat something in order for them to get the feeling to go away, not realizing it's going to come back again because they haven't attended to what the actual issue is. So it can either be loss of appetite or in the other direction. Feeling like you can't drag yourself out of bed in the morning, sleeping all the time, loss of a sense of humor. So nothing is funny. Even if you see something that should be hysterically funny, you can't get yourself there. Change in behavior. For example, if you were a fun-loving person, now you're not. And some people don't even I didn't realize that I didn't laugh. If that girl hadn't said to me, do you still get yourself into so much trouble with your giggling? I wasn't even aware that was no longer something that I did. So it's not that people are aware that they've changed in any way. Being emotional, feeling like crying all the time or on the verge of tears all the time. And then loss of interest in things you used to enjoy, like maybe you used to love painting or drawing or playing a musical instrument. You don't even know that you make an excuse not to do those things, not realizing that the reason why you're avoiding those things is because it opens up something that you don't want to open up, because you don't want to have to deal with the emotions associated with that. The feeling of despair, powerlessness, feeling fearful, sad, hopelessness. It can also be caused when there's a breakdown in a relationship, but you're staying when you should leave. And it's very easy to say, oh, just leave. But for some people, they can't see how they can do that. There just doesn't seem a way that they can cope being out of the relationship, maybe for a financial situation, or they just don't have the confidence to do life on their own. Another thing that can also cause depression is working in a job that you absolutely hate, and you stay because you feel you're not qualified enough to do anything else. Where you're unable to, you don't think that you have the skills to do something else. And it's interesting how depression can show in different forms in older people, like very mature people. So they can have memory difficulties or personality changes, and people don't realize that's actually also depression. And then some can show physical aches or pain, fatigue, loss of appetite, sleep problems, loss of interest in sex that's not caused from a medical condition or medication, often wanting to stay home rather than going out and socializing or doing new things. And they often have suicidal thinking or feelings, especially in older men. Because a lot of men, when they retire, they've worked their entire lives to the point of retirement. And then all of it, so everything has been defined by who they are, about being the breadwinner, about achieving what they need to achieve, so their family is proud of them. And then they retire, and all of a sudden they're no longer the director, they're no longer the owner of a business, they're no longer a person of stature in society. So now they think they're worthless, instead of finding something else that they can do, another hobby or another way to be able to serve in the community, or just enjoy life because they've worked so hard. There's no shift in their psyche that helps them to survive. I remember when I worked in telecom years ago, the retirement age was 55. And I cannot tell you how many of those men died before 60, and yet they had been perfectly healthy. They just died of a heart attack. It was like something that was quick. They just died, and we were like, well, that's crazy. But then when I started with all of this, I realized they no longer had the will to live because they saw no value in their life. And so it can be really difficult for a person to find a new way. So that needs to be kind of focused on before retirement, like start finding things that they have interest in before they go into retirement. A friend of mine, he did a whole lot of workshops and things on motivation and things. And one of the things he used to do was talking about the triangles. And so if you can imagine a large triangle, and within that large triangle on the base, there are 3 other triangles. So the large triangle is you, that's your life, okay? And then the 3 other triangles, one is social, one is family, and one is work. So he said that you will get someone who is a businessman who has this massive big triangle for work, not necessarily businessman, a person that works, okay? They are defined by their work. So that triangle is massive in there. Then they've got a social one, which is also pretty large because a lot of the social events are related to their work, okay? And then they've got the family triangle. So as they make the work and social triangle bigger and bigger, the family one is pretty small there because it's not getting much attention. Now all of a sudden they go into retirement. So those other 2 triangles kind of fall away because the social one, they're no longer playing golf for business. So the 2 things have now become almost a non-entity. And now they've got the family one, which is this tiny triangle. And now they go into depression because they realize they don't even really know how to interact with their family if they were doing that, working, 12, 13 hours a day, going into the office weekends, etc., where they were really pushing it. And now all of a sudden, all of that is stopped, and they don't even know really how to connect with their children. And then often the children are bitter and twisted because they never paid enough time. This can be man or woman, where they didn't pay enough time to the kids. Now the kids are bitter and twisted, thinking, oh, now you want to spend time with us. Well, now we've got our own lives. We don't want to spend time with you. So when he was speaking to businessmen and women, he was trying to show them, you need to try and have those triangles equally balanced, so that when you do retire, you have something else going on in your life, so that you are not left feeling absolutely rudderless, So when you're feeling hopeless or helpless in your life, where there's something going on at the moment, and you feel like there's no other way, there's no resolution to whatever you're going through, no matter what the difficulty is, whether it's relationships, whatever it is that's really getting you down, think of another time in your life that you felt as helpless, that there was just no resolution, there was no good outcome, there was just no way a particular situation could work out, and how it did in a miraculous way. You don't even know how all the things unfolded, but you're still around, you're still surviving, you didn't die, so it did work out. Try and think of that time, so that you get the confidence that God has got your back, whatever you call God, source, Allah, whoever your creator is, that clearly there must have been a higher purpose of something going on that had your back, because it all worked out anyway. Because that feeling of powerlessness and not knowing which direction to move, that can make you feel like, if I had the guts to check myself out, I would, but I don't. But I just wish I could die. When a person has a wish to die, or no will to live, you can get yourself sick. But if it's not your time to go, you still won't die. So you're just going to have a really hard time. So I always try to say to people, you need to choose life. So if you're sick, if there's anything going on, just have a mantra in your mind. I choose life. I choose life. Because when the universe knows that you are choosing life, things start working in a positive way. While you are choosing not to be part of life, while you have no will to live, which is basically choosing death, then the body starts breaking down. It starts building up a huge acidity. When you're dying, the body becomes more and more acidic. So what happens? It creates the environment for you to die, because that's what's going on in your mind, and the mind controls the body. So if you are thinking in that direction, things will just keep on going wrong. If you have a positive focus, I don't care if there's only one thing in your life that's positive, everything else that's going on is negative that's happening around you. If you focus on just that one positive thing, slowly, the things will just keep, because where focus goes, energy flows. Things around you will just start getting more and more positive. Things will start coming right with those things that you thought were never going to be able to come right. The people around you will start behaving differently, because you are in a space of expecting the good, because you are only focusing on what is good and what is right. And you will just find things start changing. People always say, yeah, I tried all that kind of stuff. That stuff doesn't work. I've tried all of that, and I've never, ever had anything good happen. Then I say, oh, so you focus on the good thing for 5 minutes, and the rest of the day you're focusing on all that's wrong in your life. And then you wonder why all that's wrong in your life keeps on perpetuating, because your energy flow is going towards all that is wrong. So you keep on recreating more and more of what's wrong in your life instead of what's good. The minute and just challenge yourself on this one. I challenge all of you. Just try focusing on something good, no matter what, and then see what else starts happening around you. You will just, because the more confidence you get in that, the more you'll be focusing on good things, and the more good things will start happening. So I just want to give a couple of stories of issues that had happened with clients of mine. So there was one woman, she was an estate agent, and she came to me for an Orosoma reading. I was working in a chiropractic practice, there was the woman was a networking chiropractor, and her husband was a homeopath, and they really believed in the aurosoma, the color therapy. And so they said, oh, won't you come and work in our practice once a week, just so we can expose our clients, our patients to the color therapy, because some of them they just have those same patterns recurring over and over again. And I just think if we could give them a different perspective, it could shift where they're at and they'd be able to heal. And so I went there once a week for one morning a week, and then people could book sessions with me. And there was this one lady that came, the estate agent, and as I was doing, so how the aurosoma works is there's about 110 bottles, I think, in the range, and they're a color combination. So the above half is oil based, and the bottom half is a water based, water from the Glastonbury well, and they're different color combinations. And so because they've got crystal energy and herb extracts and color essences and essential oils and the water from the Glastonbury well, it's a healing machine in the bottle, and it resonates with your energy field. So someone looking at the bottles, there will be certain bottles that will jump out at them that are giving them information according to what's going on in their energy field, in their body. And so as I was doing this woman's reading, we hadn't spoken about anything emotional, but the tears were just streaming down her face. And I said to her, what is going on with you? Because that is not normal. You are at cracking point. If we are talking about something that shouldn't bring any emotion whatsoever, but you've got emotion all the time, that's not okay. What's going on? And she said, well, I'm like this all the time. She said, I'm an estate agent, so I go and work every day, and I'm like this all the time. I don't know what to do about it. So I said to her, well, what is your story? So this was her story. From birth, she was given up for adoption. She was very close to the birth father. The birth mother hated her guts. Obviously, the birth mother was probably jealous of the relationship with the father. The adopted, sorry, I hope I didn't say birth. The adopted mother and father I'm talking about. And so the mother didn't like her. Maybe hate is too strong a word, but the mother didn't like her. And so I imagine a little girl would notice that very, very early on in her life if the mother doesn't like her. So at 19, she meets the love of her life, and they get engaged, and the mother managed to break them up. So the adopted mother. They go their separate ways. They get married to other people. They're not happy. They get divorced, get back together again, and the mother breaks them up again. And then he has an accident and ends up in a wheelchair. She helps him, and he still said, we're going to be in our old age sitting on our stoop, which is the veranda, the patio, in our rocking chair, wondering why the hell we let people interfere in our lives. So that was the promise of old age. And then the mother died earlier the year before. And I thought, well, thank God for that, because now they can be together. And he died later that year. Now, I still get emotional about this because I suffered loss, but to me, that was loss on steroids. So when they could finally be together, he died. So I understood why the tears were brimming over all the time. So I said to her, look, I do this energy healing, and there's a technique there for grief release that I think could help you. But let me tell you, I honestly didn't know that it could work at the level that it did. I just thought, it works on one grief. I didn't think it could work on all of that. And so up to that point when I had the session with her, because she came to me the next week. So this was in the first year of my practice. So this was 2002, the first year that I had my practice. And this had all happened the year before. And so up to that point, I would just have, when people would come and see me, I had decided while I was doing the training that when somebody comes to me, I'm going to have them thinking about the issue that they've come to see me with. I'm not just going to be doing a balancing. I'm going to get them to think about the issue, because I found the results were really, really good. And then, so when she came to me, I was thinking, well, I'm her last point of help. She's already on medication and all that kind of stuff. Nothing has helped her. So I've got to make a difference for this woman. And so I thought, well, depression is when a whole lot of things are active at the same time. So I don't see why I can't get her to think about all the stuff from when she was young up to present time, because there's all that stuff relating to her experience with her mother and the loss, her stepmother, her adopted mother, and her to do with her boyfriend dying. And so I just thought, I'm going to do the whole thing. We may as well chuck the whole damn onion. And that's why I now call that session Chucking the Whole Onion, because that's now how I work from that day forward. So anyway, I do the session with her when she's lying down. The tears are still streaming. And now I was asking for signs. I was asking, I want to know if this has worked. I want to know when I'm doing this session on her, is this something that will unfold for her to come right over time, or is it done? Is it finished on the table? I need to know. I need you to give me a sign. And so when she sat up and I gave her water to drink, the other thing was, every time she spoke about the no. So I gave her water to drink, and then I asked her, how was that? And she said, oh, no, that was amazing. I just feel so at peace. And then she started speaking about the boyfriend. And I said to her, oh, my God, you're not crying. And she said, this has never happened. I have never, ever been able to speak to him without crying. So clearly that meant that the session was done there and then. So there's the next part of the story. So now, this was in 2002. 2005, I'm now moving down to Cape Town. And the week before I was moving down, I was thinking, oh my gosh, I wonder whatever happened to that woman, because now I'm going to be moving down to Cape Town and I'm never going to hear I'm never going to bump into her to find out what happened. And those friends of mine that the chiropractor and the homeopath, they had moved into bigger premises. And so I was going there to say goodbye to everybody, because I was moving the next week. I was leaving in 2 days. So this was the Tuesday, and I was moving down to Cape Town on the Thursday. I was driving down. And so I went to say goodbye to everybody. And I see this woman. Now, I never forget her face. I see this woman, but it's in the wrong place. So I don't know how to relate to who she is. So she comes up to me and she says, hi, Allison. So I said, hi. She said, I came to you. I don't know if you remember, I came to you. And I suddenly realized who she was. And she said, my son and your son go to school together. And so I think about you all the time. And I've been meaning to tell you the outcome of the session. She said, my stepson. So then I realized, oh my gosh, she got married. And so I said, please, because I've been thinking about you the whole of last week, and I moved down to Cape Town on Thursday, and I thought I'm never going to find out what the story is. She said, well, everything changed after the session. 3 months after that, she met her husband, and 6 months later, they got married. And she was as happy as anything, with no residue of what had gone on before. And so if you clear the stuff, the memory is still there. So you would still be feeling the connection with that person. It doesn't take away the bond that you had with the person, but there's no longer that gut-wrenching, devastating feeling around it. It's just the missing of not having that person around anymore. And I think that's important, because a lot of people don't even want to open that Pandora's box to address that kind of thing, because they're too worried that if they open it, they can't close it again, and then they've got to deal with the pain associated with that. Then there was another girl who wanted to attend a workshop of mine, and then she asked me, can she come to me one-on-one to learn the channeling workshop? And I said, well, it doesn't really work like that, because you need to be working with someone. But she had such a phobia about being in anything to do with like a group session, like a group class thing. So she had never been able to, and she was in her early 30s at this stage. And so she then decided after a while to come to me for a session. And what it turned out to be, so she suffered from depression. And when I said to her, when did the depression start? When was the first time you realized you felt down? And it's quite interesting. I've had some people say 5 years old. How the hell can you know at 5 years old that you were depressed? And they say, well, I just know everybody was having fun around me and I wasn't having fun. I never partook in anything. So don't think that a child doesn't know what's going on when things are going on. But next week I'm doing it on teenage depression. The talk will be on teenage depression because that's also too big a subject to have combined with this. And so she said, it was around about grade 11. So I said, okay, so what age were you then? Oh, no, sorry, she said age. So she said 16. So I said, okay, that was grade 11. So what happened in grade 11? And then she said, oh, my goodness. I had, there was a girl that they had to work in groups 2 by 2. They had to work with someone on a particular project. And so it wasn't a friend, it wasn't anybody that she knew, but it was a girl in class. So the girl said, well, why don't you come to my house after school and then we can work on the project together? So she said, okay, fine. When they went to the house, she'd never been there before. When she went to the house, the girl's father was there. And so the father asked the child to go to get something from the shop. And so because this girl wanted to go home to get finished and done with what they had to do and go home, she said, no, she won't go with. She'll start preparing all the stuff, so that when the other girl comes back, they can get on with the project. And what had happened was the father had raped her before the girl got back. She had never told a living soul until she told me that day. So she'd carried that trauma all the time. She hadn't been able to be in relationships. She didn't like to socialize. She had got completely withdrawn. She did work, but she didn't socialize with work. Her work that she did was quite high-powered, intensive, so she could throw herself completely in her work, but she didn't socialize. She didn't have friends. She clearly didn't trust anybody from that moment on, and had never told anybody or even remembered the incident until we were speaking about it. So we were able to, because I had her thinking about all that, did all the shifting and healing around that. And it was about 2-3 months later when I'd advertised that I was doing the workshop again, and she booked to come onto the workshop and was quite okay being in the workshop environment and interacting with everybody. So it's great that I was able to get because I don't phone people and say, hey, how are you doing? Give me your feedback of what's going on in your life, because I feel that's invasive. But it's great that the universe has shown me that the shifts had happened and they were able to get on with their lives. Because if you're not short-circuiting, uncovering what the cause is and clearing and healing what that is, if you don't address it, then of course the state of depression will continue, because the body doesn't know any other way to function. It's doing that for its own survival, What else? So some of the things that you can do, and just to say, I'm not anti the allopathic way of doing things. I believe there's place for the allopathic way as well as the alternative way. Okay. So in other words, if someone is going through a trauma now, and you need to give them a antidepressant in order for them to cope, that's absolutely fine for while they're going through. Like when my husband passed and I was going to up to the funeral, I still had to function. So I was very grateful. I think the first night when my husband had passed, I think the doctor had given me Valium and just but one tablet in order to cope, to function. And then, but after that, he gave me a thing called Traumeal. No. It's another name. It's not Traumeal. I can't think of the name, but this particular thing I was able to drive, whereas with the Valium, I wasn't able to drive. And so I took those those tablets until after the funeral. And then after that, I knew I had to function because of my son and everything. I had to get myself towards myself. So to use it as an interim thing is absolutely fine. The problem is when people become dependent on the medication, and then the energy just gets lower and lower and lower. If you have a look at the wall, I'll just go to the wall quickly. I put a picture on the wall, the last picture that I put on there, which shows how when we are depressed, what's actually happening in our lives. So the first knock you get in your life, say your pet dies, and then you have your first knock, and then you normalize at that point. Then your heart is broken at 16 and you take your next life's knock down, but you still say, I'm okay. And then your mom dies, and then you say, I'm okay. And then you get divorced, and then maybe something else happens, and then maybe COVID kicks in, whatever it is that's the next blow. And each time you say, I'm okay, I'm okay, I'm okay, it's showing you that I can hear by the tone of a person's voice where they're at, because each time they take the knock, they've normalized where they're at. Whereas we think once we've normalized, we've gone back to where we were before. But our bodies are built as a machine for survival. That's why someone that's in the middle of China, in one of those where they dig the hole in the ground and they just put that grid at the top, and they make the person, they imprison them there. Why they survive and they live and they don't die is because their body normalizes to where they're at. They don't freak out. Their body just calms them to the situation where they're at. And that's why very often if someone's in an abusive relationship, they don't feel it the way you see it. They are not aware of how bad it is because you are looking from the outside in. They have normalized where they're at. When they do see how bad it is, that's when they're ready to leave. So very often people are in a situation, they are depressed, and you can see why, because I'm okay, I'm okay, I'm okay, I'm okay. They're at their lowest ebb. So it's like their energy is pressed down, is depressed, okay? And so they really battle to function. But they are not consciously aware of it until somehow some awareness comes through where they realize, hold on a second, what's going on here? I want to feel more. I want to enjoy life more. I choose more, you know? So, and very often it's got to come from the choice that they want, where they make a choice to live and not to just survive. And then the other thing that I've put up as well, this emotional guidance scale is from Ask and It Is Given by Abraham Hicks. Esther channels a group of beings known as Abraham, and they gave this scale, emotional guidance scale, which shows, if you look at the top 7 things, those are the feeling good feelings, and then everything from 8 down is the feeling bad. Okay, so a person that's at 22, which is right at the bottom of the scale, that's a state of fear or grief or depression or despair or powerlessness. So this is literally where they feel they just want to climb into bed and pull the duvet over their head. Okay, so what they suggest is, if you're at 22, find a way to feel better. So let's say it's depression. So you need to get mad, because that's higher up the scale. You cannot get from 22 to 1. It is not possible. You can jump a couple at a time, but you can't just jump from 22 to 1. It is the vibrational frequency is too far away. So you can get to anger. No, get to revenge. Okay. You wish you could rip their head off and feed them to the sharks. Okay. So it's fine to stay there for a little bit, but that's not a good place either. So you can think about what you'd like to do, but you don't act on that. Then when you're at that space, then you think, okay, so how can I move higher? So you get mad or you blame them. But each time you don't stay there. You try and find a higher place and a higher place until you can get to a point where you are feeling better. So when there's someone in the home who is suffering from depression. Everybody is worried about them when they won't come out of their room. But when they start coming out, they start getting mad, they start throwing things around, then they think, I preferred them better when they were in the room with the duvet over their head, because they don't realize that them being angry and mad is actually an improvement from where they were at. So the guidance scale is really good to go by as well, because that's also, people think when they feel bad, they're at 22. And when they feel good, they're at 1. You know, that's how we think. When I'm feeling good, I'm amazing. And when I'm feeling bad, I'm really bad. It's good to have that guidance scale printed out, especially if some people have difficulty with their emotions, etc., to be able to see where you're at. So if you're having a bad day, okay, so when I'm saying I'm having a bad day, where exactly am I at? Am I at, I'm just feeling discouragement? It's like, oh, this particular thing is not working out. This project that I wanted to complete is just not working out. Where am I feeling? Actually, I'm feeling discouragement. So I've got to find a way to feel more optimistic about it. So what can I do? Worry about it. Just see how you can climb up to feel the fact of, I'd rather feel frustrated and irritated than be feeling discouragement, because that's further up the line. And so on. And then you just find a way to make yourself feel better. And then if you're waking up feeling off, it's also good to be able to see, why am I feeling like this? What's going on right now? And sometimes you can actually link it to something that's just happened. So then, you know, like that client of mine who knew that, I don't know, I'm feeling 3 right now because of the experience that I had with him. But that's not my overall feeling. My overall feeling is actually 7. So I'm feeling pretty good, except for what's happened with me regarding that guy. So if you can separate those things, then you will be feel more empowered of being able to recognize where you're at. If you do take medication for depression, I highly recommend that you use the white light. I've given this exercise before, where you visualize white light coming down through the top of your head, through your whole body and into the ground, and then into the medication. So have the medication in your hand, see the white light coming out of the palms of your hands into the medication, and then set an intention around the medication. Say, I set the intention, whatever my body needs, it takes. Whatever it doesn't need, it passes straight through without any negative side effect to the body. And I set the intention that this be for my highest good. What that does is, it, instead of your body, you having the reaction of, oh my gosh, I wish I didn't take this pure poison. I wish I wasn't taking this. It's pure poison for my body. And your body's going, what the hell? Why are you giving me this poison? It tries to get it out as quickly as possible. So whatever could have helped you doesn't help. So it's either way, you don't feel good. Whereas this way, whatever is good will help you, and whatever is negative will pass straight through. But in putting the white light into the medication, you are raising the vibrational frequency of that medication. So I never recommend my clients to stop taking their medication. I tell them, start doing the white light. I said, you will notice when something is different regarding the medication, when you either keep forgetting to take it, or you start feeling ill, you start feeling nauseous because the body doesn't want it anymore. Then you can go back to the psychiatrist or psychologist, or back to your GP, whoever prescribed it for you, and then ask them to check again to see if it's even necessary. So I never tell them just stop your medication, because some of those things have terrible side effects if you just stop the medication. But your soul has a way of telling you that it's okay to let it go, and then find a way so that the original doctor that prescribed it can see that you no longer need it. And often they're surprised because they thought, oh, no, this is going to be forever, because they never, ever look at what's behind it, or they never believe or think that there's a possibility that that they can get over whatever the issue is, because the only way they know is to medicate it. So to me, I still say energy healing is the best kept secret, because I've seen it do things that no other things have achieved, for myself personally and for all my clients. So I just believe no matter what's going on, chuck energy healing at it, and you're more likely to come right than with any other thing that you can possibly do. So I think I've given lots of information. I'm hoping there's lots of questions so we can expand and explore more. So I think we will now open up for any questions.